What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Fulfillment Podcast, where we discover better you will find fulfillment in life, relationships, and finance. I'm your host, Josh, and in this episode, we're talking about the Spearhead and the driver. So let's get to it. Talking about the story of the Spearhead and the driver. So the Spearhead and the driver is basically when you get into any endeavor that you come across in your life, right? So say you're coming up, got a big situation that you have to handle. You're making moves in the right direction, or let's say even in the army, or you're in the heat of combat or something. There's a spearhead and a driver in every situation, especially on a dynamic team. So when you have something that comes up, the best results and the best solutions and the best planning are going to happen when there's a relationship between a spearhead and a driver. It's basically saying there are two types of people when it comes to planning and decision making, and they are both good independently, right? So they can both work really, really well independently. But when you get both of these people together and on the same team, you turn into the spear, right? So you have the spearhead, you have the driver. When you get two together, you end up with the spear, right? And that's the perfect combination. What it is the spearhead is basically a person that gets in. So they find the opportunities, they seize the opportunities, they know what opportunities look like, they dive in, they take it, they go for it, they can recognize everything they need to know it's good, and they go, and they fucking tackle it. They may not know how to solve the problem or how to get there in the end, but they recognize the opportunity, they see the benefit, and they take action on it immediately, right? So it's like they get right in there. If you imagine like an arrowhead or a spearhead, right, getting thrust at an enemy, right? It's the first point out there. It's the first point of contact. It dives in and gets into it immediately, right? It's the first thing in. So if you think about it, without the spearhead just goes. Without the spearhead, the arrow and the spear are nothing, right? There's nothing to them without that spearhead taking that first jab at it. So that's the concept of the spearhead. That's who the spearhead is. The spearhead is somebody that recognizes opportunity, seizes opportunity, right? They know what opportunity looks like, so they seize it without question. They can take action on it. They're not afraid to get in, right? So they have little. It's almost like they're very confident. It's a very confident person because it's not that they don't have fear. It's just that they're confident enough in themselves that they will find the solution. They're like a very confident problem solver, right? So not necessarily that they know all the answers, but that they know that they can find the answers and that they can get things done regardless of what happens. So that's the spearhead. That's who the spearhead is. And then you got the driver or the shaft of the spear, right? And what the driver is it's the momentum behind everything. So the spearhead gets in there, right, and creates that penetration, gets in, seizes the opportunity and takes advantage of it. And then that driver comes in with all the supporting effort and energy and knowledge that spearhead needs in order to be successful. So when you have the spearhead by himself, he can get into the opportunity, but he may not know how to follow through or be able to follow through on his own. If you have the driver on his own, he can do everything he needs to do, but finding the opportunities is very, very difficult. So when you have both of them together, when you have that person that's a spearhead and it just goes in, finds the opportunities, takes advantage of it, has the confidence to get going and moving, then all of a sudden they back up by somebody that's the driver, that's that driving force behind all the action that can kind of come in and close and do whatever they need. That's when you have that perfect dynamic duo that can get damn near anything fucking done, right? They may be biting off more. That spearhead may be so far in over his head that he doesn't even know what the hell he's doing, right? He may be doing something that's so far outside of his league. We'll just use like real estate, for example. He may be buying a house or buying property or whatever, so much more expensive and so far out of his league that he may not know exactly what he's doing, right? Or how he's going to accomplish this mission and this goal. But you get that driver on his team, you get that right driver behind him, that driving force behind him, then all of a sudden all these plans start coming together. I'll give you an example of how this played out for me. When I first formed my first real estate company's very first deal, so Expert Capital's first deal, once we got in, formed the company, got everything going, found our investors, got everything good, then it was like, all right, fucking game on, let's go. Well, I was very fortunate that my first deal that we ever did, I did with a partner, and my partner was very good on the lending side of things, right? So we may have had money, we may have had the little kind of things that we needed, but you have to find the ability to find somebody that can do construction and fund all this stuff, right? So learning a whole new side of the game that I totally didn't know. Well, I was going in and I was able to find, like, right off the bat, found these 2 fucking killer deals, just killer deals. And we put in, because we had no emotional attachment or anything to them, but I was pretty much told, hey, this is the budget that we have. This is what we've been approved for. Like, see what you can get for that. And I was like, fuck yeah. So gates were loosened, right? And the leash was let go. And I went. And I found 2 crazy deals, and I just threw in just like super low offers. Like, I threw in some really, really, really hard offers that basically, if they were to take it, we couldn't say no. That's how good the offers were. Well, the first one was outbid, right? Someone else took it. So we had the second offer, and that one actually got accepted. And we were like, oh shit. So we had one bite, and we're like, all right, sweet. So we're working up all the things on this one. Trying to figure out, the construction and how we're going to do the build and the demo and everything on this lot, so we were going to build a 4-plex. And while we were going in, I'm going through everything and, talking to all the different contractors and all this stuff, right? And in the situation, right, I was the spearhead. I am a person who I'm very confident that we can get it done. I may not know how to do everything right off the bat, but I know the right people, and I know the people that are experts at what they do, and they're very, very good at the things that they're doing. So I know the right people. I know no matter what, we'll find a solution, right? I know we can find a solution to every problem, and I can find opportunities. I can recognize what an opportunity looks like and what a good one looks like, and what one that I can't pass up looks like. And I can seize it, right? I know what I need to do to move on those opportunities in order to secure them and make them ours, and then solve the problem as we go along, right? So I'm the spearhead here. Now, the cool thing is I was partnered with a damn near perfect driver. So my driver was my partner in the deal, and he was the lender guy, right? So he's working with the lenders, figuring out how we can get money working and all that stuff. So we originally went into the deal planning for, like, we'll say $150,000 in construction. So we were going to do all this stuff, $150,000. Well, we get to the site, we start walking through, start talking to the contractors. Mind you, we've never done construction before ever, so we don't know how costs work. So as we're going through all this, we're sitting down, we're talking with everything. This guy's telling me I need to be planning somewhere closer to like 400,000, right? So I was way off. We were way, way off on what we thought we needed in order to do this job, in order to do this project. So basically what I did was, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, so, this, and I'm running numbers in my head as we're talking to the guy, and I'm like, okay, this and this. I'm like, what could I resell it for? If it's now, I'm going to have to sink, we'll say I purchased it for 200 and we add 400. So I'm like, now it's worth to us, we've sunk in 600,000. We got to get at least 600 out, which means we're going to need to be at least 700 or 800 on the top end, right? And I'm talking to the guy, I'm like, well, okay, this. I'm like, man, is it going to sell for 800? He's like, oh yeah, not a problem, right? Because so I know the market in the area. I don't know the product that he's going to build for me, but him picturing it and describing it and telling me, I'm like, oh, for sure. Like, this thing's going to sell for 800,000. No problem. He's like, actually, you know what? I have a couple people that would buy it tomorrow that are moving from California, because everybody's exodusing from California. And he's like, I know people that would come in tomorrow for $1 million and pick it up. I was like, oh, okay. So that really changes the game, right? The whole point of this is this opportunity is coming together. Now, mind you, I have no idea where I'm going to come up with the $400,000 to do this construction cost. But talk to my driver. I talked to him, and I'm like, hey, dude, so we were a little off. We got to come up with 400,000 instead of 150. And he's like, oh. He's like, all right, let me get to it. I'll give you a call back. He went straight to work for like 3 hours talking to people. Talked to like 12 different lenders, got a whole bunch of different numbers, all this stuff. He came back to me. He's like, dude, we got the money. Actually, we got approved for 600,000. Let me know what you want to do. We're ready to go. I was like, oh, baby, here we go. So that's the power. If you guys can see right there, then we could start construction essentially on a $400,000 unit and do all this stuff. It would be, to us, we'd sell 600,000. We could sell it for 8 or $1 million, right? So just like that, that's the power, if you can see, of having a spearhead who is very good at what they do and can recognize the opportunities that are presented to them, and a driver who can back up the spearhead and get them through the toughest situations and give them the resources and the things that they need in order to make the things happen. Because then you start construction on that, then you build, then you sell, and everything comes out on the back end so like 10 times bigger than it would if any piece of those were independent or by themselves. Because he never would have made a deal if it weren't for me. I never would have gotten the funding if it weren't for him. I mean, I probably could have, but it would have taken me a lot longer and I wouldn't have been as efficient at it as he was. And he probably could have found a deal without me. But again, it wouldn't have been as efficient and it probably wouldn't have been as good as what we were able to pull off. So together as a team, you both come out so much better. And that's the power of finding. You got to find a spearhead and a driver and find out who you are, right? Talk to yourself and see who are you in these situations. When you start looking at business and when you start looking at financial situations and relationships you have with people, who are you in the relationship? Are you a spearhead or are you the driver? And if you're the spearhead, find somebody that's a driver for you. Find somebody that may not be as gung-ho and crazy, right? People call it the spearheads crazy people because fucking are. Might not find somebody as crazy as you, but maybe you find somebody that's a driver that gets behind you, gives you that energy, gives you that force, gives you that encouragement, that motivation, and pushes you forward and gets you through those kind of like tough spots where there's like resistance that you can't quite get through, and gets you through those just enough to where you can start driving in again and keep forcing yourself through, right? And that's what it's all about. The whole name of the game is finding yourself somebody that complements wherever you're at. If you're a driver, right? If you're the driver in the situation to where you can do a lot of things and you can add a lot of support, but maybe you don't have that recognition of what are these crazy opportunities that are showing up in my life, find yourself a spearhead who can identify those situations and knows and has some experience and can recognize when things like that pop up in life, they jump on it. They know exactly what it is they need to do. They just need a driver a lot of times. Right? So I gave you the real estate example. A lot of times spearheads are people that recognize opportunity but may not have a lot of money, and the drivers are the investors that have all the money and have all the resources but don't necessarily sit on MLS or any other listing sites or on the off market calling people to the point where they find all the deals, right? So when you put those two people together, you create this dynamic team. And the same thing happens in a relationship, right? When you start looking at how relationships are formed, if you got somebody that's a dynamic driver and somebody who can add a lot of support and stuff to a relationship, but maybe they don't know what these opportunities or like travel and stuff like that, right? If they don't recognize what these things look like, then maybe they don't go do it. But if they partner themselves with a spearhead, somebody that can do all these things, they just need a driver, or they just need a spearhead to get them there, then that's like a perfect combination. And the cool thing about this too is it doesn't have to be the same with everything. You can be a spearhead and a driver in any situation. So like, let's say in real estate, right? So in business, I may be a spearhead, right? I may be recognizing opportunities and going for it and doing all these things. However, maybe in my relationship, my girlfriend's the one that's like, hey, let's go here for vacation, or like, this is a cool new place. Like, let's check this place out, or here's some plans that we're gonna do this weekend. And then I'm just coming through with like, okay, what do we got to pay for? Here's this, let's take care of that. Let me do whatever I got to do on the back end. Like, I can be the driver for her as the spearhead in what she's doing, right? So it's really cool because it's situation dependent, not necessarily personality dependent. I think your personality will determine what you do more often, but each situation is going to be independent of the other, so that you could have totally different things happening simultaneously. You could be spearhead and driver situation no matter what. The cool thing is it's when you pair those two people together is when their like maximum efficiency starts happening. It's when like things start going. And the crazy thing is there's also like resistance that adds into all this. And that's the tough part, right? That's the hard part that you have to be able to recognize. It's that whole like law of attraction piece. You have to remove resistance this entire time. So if at any point in this, there's a spearhead, a driver, and then resistance somewhere, right? Then you have to get rid of whatever that resistance is. If there's resistance stopping you from achieving something, separate yourself from it. Remove yourself from the resistance. Get yourself away from that, right? What that would look like for real estate and real estate deals, one of the contractors that we were walking a lot with was like, it's impossible. You're never going to get anything built here. It's going to be insanely expensive. You're not going to be able to do what you want, like all this stuff, right? And I'm like, man, I just talked to like two other guys that are like 100% confident they can get anything done I mean, I just watched somebody do it down the street, like this can happen. I don't know why this guy's being such a downer, but that's an example of resistance, right? Don't ever, it's hard because I go through this all the time, right? When I was sitting there talking to that guy that was telling me there's no way it could be done, it was very difficult for me because I'm like, man, am I being overly optimistic? And that's what happens with some of the times in the spearheads is, am I being overly optimistic about what can be achieved? And this person is driving me back. Like, is this person my driver that's holding me back? A lot of times that's not the case. A lot of times that person is just resistance. When you recognize it and see them as resistance, instead of starting to question yourself, get yourself the driver. Like I said, get a driver behind you and start going for it again and remove the resistance and start taking action and moving forward. One thing, you're either going to learn a really, really good lesson and you're going to get more experience to help you further down the road, or two, you're going to end up with these exceptionally, like, beyond expectation results. So be able to recognize what resistance looks like. In a relationship, resistance could be like a nagging parent or a sibling or, I don't know, an aunt or an uncle or some sort of relative or whatever telling you can't do something, or maybe it's your boss is stopping you, or it's your job. Your fucking job could very well be the resistance that's getting in your way too, right? If you have all these things you want to do and you've got all this money and you're doing everything right, and like you don't need the job, right? Or you don't want the job because it's absolute misery to you, then maybe you start looking at that, and that may be the resistance that you need to analyze in your life that you need to change, because you as the spearhead or as the driver and your wife as the spearhead or the driver, right? Maybe you guys as a dynamic duo are capable of all these things. You're just held back by these beliefs that you have to have these jobs or you have to do these certain things or whatever. I'm not saying go quit your job, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that could be an example of what resistance would look like in a relationship. So it's up to you to figure out what the resistance is and make sure that you remove it. But I think the bigger point of what I'm trying to make is being able to recognize that sometimes people would just get in your way. And if I would have listened to this if I would listen to this one guy that told me that there's no way it could be done, it's impossible, it's way too expensive, like all this stuff, then I would never get anything accomplished. And that's the same with anything, right? Anything you do in life, if you listen to people that say things like that, sometimes there's nothing you'll do to get accomplished, because the only way you're going to get it done and the only way you're going to find out for yourselves is if you start taking action and moving forward on it. So be the person that solves the problem, right? Don't ever be the person that, sits back and says, no, it can't be done or whatever. So identify who you are in each situation. Find out who would complement what you're trying to get done and what's trying to be accomplished. Find out where you're at, right? And then that'll solve the problem of who you need to partner yourself with or what kind of attitudes you need to be surrounding yourself with. And then once you do that, you'll recognize that the growth becomes exponential. So don't let people hold you back. Don't listen to people that are trying to hold you back. Find yourself, surround yourself with the right type of people, and you guys got this. You are going to take off. It's going to be the most powerful thing you've ever done. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you in the next week.